Good morning, January 21st. This is Fabian Onetti for Winston Capital Advisors from beautiful Vermont. Again, not so cold like last week, but with a recap of the week. What we're going to talk about today, a little bit about the S&P and the sectors. You had some questions over the week. We have some news about NAFTA. We're going to talk about General Electric, the agribusiness sector in terms of commodities. We reviewed that. We got some big news on the tax front. Apple, the week before was Walmart. We're going to discuss that. Again, a little bit about emerging markets and China. What means the government shutdown for the markets. Big news on Amazon on Friday and the possible place for the second headquarters. And then, like always, who's coming next week? Reporting season just started, so we will discuss about who is coming this week. But let's start again. The market was up, close to 2.5% since the beginning of the year. But there are two sectors that are doing very well: energy and finance. Both are around 6 or 7%. And funny, these are the sectors that we tried to make money last year, couldn't make money last year, and now they're rallying. Oil very strong. Clearly, on a global recovery, we have now an issue of supply. It looks like there is not enough supply, so we'll be looking closely, see if we can make a play on the energy sector. Finance, most of the banks reported, they all reported this one-time event, big loss due to the new change in the tax laws, which I couldn't understand that thing, because I think they were like, they were doing a lot of pro rata things, so they all brought it back to one event and they took the losses. But in general, the banks reported very well. The stock did very well. But we saw the highlights where Goldman Sachs reported lousy, down 3%, and Morgan Stanley slightly better than the pack. He was up about 1.5%. But in general, they came in line. So that's there. NAFTA. For the first time, we saw, the negotiations, remember, that started in August, were supposed to finish in December, and now they're just, kind of being delayed to Q1. For the first time, there were some reports that the White House might have some flexibility. The main reason President Trump was last week in the agribusiness region of America, the farmers, which are a big support for him. And many studies say that if the United States walks away from NAFTA, the agribusiness in the United States will suffer the most. It is one of the biggest winners of NAFTA for the U.S., the exports into Mexico. So maybe he got some voices there. So the Wall Street Journal reported that the U.S. might flexibilize his position. Remember, the big thing is the content on the part of the car makers. That's the biggest problem right now. So we'll follow that. But it came out big rally on the Mexican peso on those news. GE, which by the way, okay, a lot of comments about whether the stock will make sense or not. Many studies where the company can split, but they took like a $15 billion loss on some sort of very old, contingent liability on something that they have sold long ago that it came, and as they say, and bite them. So that's kind of the argument that many people see. Even if you split the company, there are so many lingering issues that they're not worth it. So we are staying away from that stock. Some of you asked me, and I just made a comment. It's very difficult to understand. As I said, the other thing that we're talking, Jeff Gundlach spoke last week about, we're at the last part of the cycle, and in terms of the economic growth, many economists think that the second half of the year will be slower because finally the interest rates will start taking an effect. And historically, in the last part of the cycle, commodities do very well. The agribusiness commodities are the worst performance last year. The DBA the index is down. Metals and energy did very well, but agribusiness, a lot of people are making a play into that part of the world. So it could make sense. I would say metals probably more than agribusiness, because in agribusiness we have the problem that we have record harvest in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. So we have a supply problem. But that might make sense for some play into the late cycle commodities. And again, I would go there more with the metals. That's on that side. And then in terms of tax news, Apple announced that it will repatriate $350 billion worth of money that's abroad, pay $38 billion in taxes, and over time deploy the $350 billion to create about 20,000 jobs. funny enough, there was a comment in Barron's over the weekend, kind of negative, because most of the stuff is in the numbers, and the fact that Apple is repatriating this money and more or less giving it back to the investors means that he's not finding great opportunities on where to invest the money. So kind of, it's a wish wash. I think it's very positive. Remember, Walmart the week before made this big announcement. 2.3 million employees, the largest private employer in the United States, gave a $1,000 bonus to every employee and raised the minimum wages. So clearly a big effect on what's happening, with the new tax laws. Finally, China reported GDP 6.9% growth, higher than the market expected, and that was very positive. So finally, I'm sorry, before I forget, Amazon announced 20 cities are the finalists of the 228 that presented themselves. Many well-known names. The only non-US is Toronto. My vote is for Denver. If you ask the young people, the millennials, they think it's Boston, because Boston has become the new technological place in the east of the United States, competing with San Francisco. But I would say Denver. I like the location and everything. And finally, what is coming this week? We have a lot of earnings. So we start on Tuesday with Texas Instrument. We'll see what's going on in the semiconductor industry. Wednesday, Ford. Ford. And on Thursday, 3M, Caterpillar. We'll see how the industrials. Intel is doing as well. Freeport McMoran on the mining sector. And then at the end of the week, we have GDP for Q4. The market expects 2.7. The previous quarter was 3.2. That was a very important number. Yet we have not, the big FANG names are not reporting yet. That's all. You can find always more in Winston.capital. Have everybody a very good week.